Alrighty, James from Moshville Times, and I'm with Dave from Anaal Nathrakh. How you doing?
I'm alright, sir. Yeah.
Good. And you're currently doing like a little run through Europe, like a few selected dates. How's it been going?
Okay. We were in Denmark last weekend, and that went pretty well. We've only played Denmark once before that, so it was nice to have a look at another part of the country.
Yeah.
And we had a driver who looked just like Mads Mikkelsen, and I really like Hannibal. And he had
Yeah.
surgical implements tattooed all over his arms, so it looked like cutlery, you know.
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah, that was fun. And then we were in Manchester last night.
Alright.
It was a Tuesday. Gigs are never the best on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
But in spite of that, it actually went really well. We really enjoyed it, and now we're back here. So
No, it's good.
we normally have quite a good laugh in Glasgow. It goes well most of the time. So we're quietly optimistic about it tonight.
Your most recent album, Desideratum, was that right?
Near enough.
Came out around 5 months ago. What's like the press response been for it, if you look at it?
I do tend not to look too much at stuff like that. But as far as I can tell, pretty positive.
Yeah.
Pretty positive. The one before as well, Vanitas, that seemed to go over quite well. Better than the one before Vanitas. So it seems a bit like maybe a return to form is a kind of a journalistic phrase that I might use. I don't know, but as far as we're concerned, we think it's great.
Oh, right.
Which isn't trumpet blowing. It's I've said this in interviews before. If you're working on an album, a piece of music, and you don't think it's the best thing you've ever done, then you haven't finished yet.
Yeah.
You should carry on and work harder. So we're really proud of it. So it's done well.
Good. Was the production for this album any different to the previous ones?
It took longer, but other than that, no, not really. We do everything ourselves.
Yeah.
And this time around, I think the first like finished release candidate version that Mick sent to me was in March.
Yeah.
And then I think we finally actually decided it was finished in about August, September. And it was just, he'll send me a version and I'll let him know what I think of it or anything, and we'll do it again. And we spent a long time doing that. But other than that, no, the way we made it all was the same way we normally do.
If I'm correct, there's only 2 of you actually in this band full time. The rest are live musicians.
Yeah. Well, I'd describe it slightly differently to that. There's 2 of us in studio band.
Right.
Whereas I would call the live band a 5-piece.
Right. Okay.
Band, because we've had the same guys for quite some time now, and we're very happy working with them. So to consider them like hired hands would be doing them a bit of a disservice, I think. There's sort of like there's two different incarnations of the band. Yeah.
If my sources are correct, the band didn't tour up until 2005, but then recently you've started doing a few shows. If you don't mind me asking, what was the reason behind you decided to start playing shows? The
BBC.
All right.
That was what did it. I mean, you say touring. We did 1 gig in 2005. So yeah, any tours as short as they might be, or even more recent than that. But yeah, years ago, when John Peel was still alive, we got asked to do a Peel session for him.
Oh.
And we did that as the 2 of us, the way we usually do things like that. And then a little while after that, early 2005, the Radio 1 rock show, which I confess I never listened to myself because it's on at stupid o'clock in the morning. But yeah, they asked us to do another live session, and we just thought, well, what can we do that's a little bit more interesting than simply doing the same thing again? So we decided to put a band together.
Yeah.
Asking people we knew that we thought could pull it off.
Yeah.
So we had Nick Barker play drums. I think that was the first thing he recorded since he left Dimmu Borgir. So.
Oh wow.
We had Shane from Napalm playing bass.
Yeah.
An unspeakably awful individual played bass on one of the songs, and our mate played the guitar. And because we'd done that, Terrorizer magazine heard that we'd put a band together to play as a full band, and they were having their like Christmas party or whatever they'd want to call it, and they asked us if we'd play that. So that was our first gig. And it was just as we'd done that, we thought, actually that worked. That was pretty good. So we were in the market for doing more shows after that.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it was completely not by design.
Yeah.
But it turned out okay.
Now, given that we are in Scotland, have you tried any Scottish food?
I'm trying to think if I've tried Scottish food actually in Scotland. Usually when I've been here, it's been something like this, and you have KFC or something, you know, because you've just got to eat. You know. I've tried lasagna that was made in Glasgow earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure I've tried numerous things over the years. Obviously, the principal one would be haggis, I would imagine. Yeah. And that's great on a breakfast.
Yeah.
I like a bit of haggis, a bit of eyelids and arseholes, you know, smeared on your egg in the morning. Other than that, I don't know what counts as Scottish food. I asked the guy from Preston.
Now, given that you're from Birmingham, there's quite a few of like the more sort of extreme metal bands from there. Would you say that you've got a good friendship with them, or does everyone tend to like keep to themselves?
Half and half, I suppose. It's not a matter of knowing people in bands. It's a matter of knowing the people that you know.
Yeah.
And whether they're in a band or not is largely irrelevant. But I mean, Dunk lives in what used to be Napalm Death's house.
All right.
Shares a house with Danny, so you know. And for years we've known the Napalm lads. So yeah, I'd say we're definitely friendly terms with them. I'm in Benediction, which is another of the extreme bands from Birmingham. So yeah, I suppose you could say we're friends with them. So we're on friendly terms with most people I can think of, but it's not as a result of being in bands.
Right.
I don't particularly like the idea of a scene of automatically guaranteeing that you're supposed to have things in common with people because they bought a record. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at the same time, if I'm going to be mates with somebody, if I'm going to chat to them down the pub, I want it to be because I want to do that, not because they're in a band.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, what inspired you to become a musician all these years ago?
I don't know, really. I've always made funny noises with my voice. Seriously, when I was a little kid, I used to growl back at dogs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So the physical side of it is just sort of an extension of something about me that I've done since I was a kid. And the I don't know what to describe the other part of it. An emotional part of it, or a creative expression part of it, or something like that. That was never necessarily directed at music. I wasn't the kind of person who saw, I mean, in my case, a microphone, or a piano or a guitar, and just fell in love. I had things that I wanted to express. I might have turned out to be a poet if things had gone differently. You know, it happened by itself. It seemed the appropriate way to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah. All right. Do you listen to any music when you're traveling, like in between shows?
We tend not to be honest, not that much. And when we do, it's stuff that amuses us more than anything else. Because all the travelling you do when you're in a band, it ain't the most glamorous thing. It's long and it's boring. And, and you've got to find a way of getting on with people in much closer proximity than you would normally spend a lot of time. We'd Tommy Lee.
Yeah.
It's a Caribbean ragger guy, not the Motley Crue guy, the Psycho and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And a bit of Burrow Banton.
Yeah.
And various weird stuff like that. One thing I don't like is listening to more metal.
Yeah.
After you've done a gig and there's been 4 bands, you've had 3 hours, part of which you're doing it yourself. I'd rather go on a tour bus and listen to Madness or something, you know what I mean? Which sometimes can cause friction with other bands if you're sharing a bus.
Yeah.
On the way up today, our mate, Gore-Tech, he's the one who did some stuff on our last album, like electronic stuff. And he came to the gig in Manchester last night and gave us his new album, so we're having a listen to that on the way up today.
Good.
But could be anything.
For some people who have maybe never heard of your music, what would you say to them? Would you say, check us out, or would you describe the music to you?
I'd say go and listen to it.
Yeah.
Describing music is a job of a journalist, not a musician, I think.
Yeah.
Embarrassing myself by referring to myself as a musician, but yeah, I think the whole deal works better if the people performing it concentrate on performing it.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to worry about what you call it or anything like that. But we have the internet now. To think that you can't listen to something if you want to check it out is laughable.
True.
You know?
Yeah.
So if you can't be bothered to stick a couple of words into Google, don't bother listening to it. You know.
My final question is, what sort of sets can we expect tonight? Is there a lot from the brand new album, or is it a mixture of previous albums?
It's a mixture. There's a track from our first album. There's bits in between. I mean, obviously, we do play a few from the new album. Because, I don't know, some bands you watch and you just play the first 2 albums and stop boring me with this crap that you're trying to ram down my throat. But I like to think that our newer stuff is sufficiently well received and up to the standard of the old stuff that it's perfectly natural and wouldn't do anyone's head in if we play new stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some new stuff in it, but yeah, it's a mix right across.
All right. Thank you very much for your time.
It's all right, mate. Hello, I'm Dave from Anaal Nathrakh, and apparently you're watching Moshville Times.